Call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of July 21st. We'll note that all commissioners are present. The first item of business is the order of business, and I am aware that there's at least one addition, and that is regarding the temporary emergency water shortages. We're going to put that under item F on the non-timetable agenda, and that'll be heard as a report and then perhaps some action taken. Are there any other changes to the order of business? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the order of business with the change that I mentioned.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The next item then is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss? Hearing no discussion, the Chair to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson, Mr. Altmans.
Aye.
Mr. Decker.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. We'll move to the non-timetable agenda. The first item we have there are appointments to the Special Assessment Commission, and we'll let Administrator Kessel introduce those.
Thank you, President Johnson. Before you this evening are several different appointments. I have contacted each of these individuals and confirmed that they have a desire and an interest to be on each of these commissions. The Special Assessment Commission is the first, and both Brian Bachman and Adam McGill have an interest to be on the Special Assessment Commission. Mr. Bachman is a developer in town, and Mr. McGill is an engineer in town. Would you like to appoint these per commission, or would you like to do this as one slate of candidates?
I'm assuming that Mr. Colling would want us to do it at least by commission, if not by individual.
Yes, Mr. President, that would be my preference.
By individual or
By commission.
by commission? Okay, so the one motion could be to approve or appoint Mr. Bachman and Mr. McGill to the Special Assessment Commission. And it's your recommendation that they be appointed?
That is exactly correct.
Would
We'll
there-
make that motion.
Okay, we have the motion to appoint both gentlemen. Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? There's no discussion. We'll vote. Mr. Altmans.
Aye.
Mr. Decker.
Aye.
Mr. Jackson.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries.
Thank you. The next commission is the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I want to just mention that we had about 7 or 8 people who were interested in serving on this Planning and Zoning Commission. Really appreciate that level of interest from the community. It was really good to see. So it made selections more interesting, and we have arrived at a recommendation of Adam Ballesteros. He is an MDU employee, and he's a engineer for MDU. And then Peggy O'Brien. Ms. O'Brien is a longtime resident of Southwest North Dakota. She is currently employed at the mall, but has served on the Belfield Planning and Zoning Commission for quite some time. It is our recommendation that Mr. Ballesteros and Mrs. O'Brien, or Ms. O'Brien, be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, you've heard Mr. Kessel's introduction and recommendation. Do you have any comments or questions?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Jackson. Mr. Altman.
Aye.
Mr. Decker.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries.
The last recommendation that we have for you is for the Historical Preservation Commission, and Mr. Sean Berry. He is an archaeologist for the Bureau of Land Management here in Dickinson, and has indicated his interest in being on the Historical Preservation Commission. Obviously, with his background in education and employment, we feel like this would be an excellent appointment, and recommend his appointment thereof.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kessel. Again, you've heard his introduction and recommendation. Comments or questions? Motion?
I'd make that motion to accept his application.
I'll second.
We have the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so the motion carries. We'll go to item B. This is a contract issue regarding B3 Studio, and Mr. Colling will introduce this item.
Mr. President, the first item that I have for you is a rescission of a contract. Back in July of last year, the city engaged Dickinson Development Group to perform some services with respect to downtown planning. Also within that contract were rights of first refusal for Dickinson Development Group to construct buildings on city-owned property or negotiate for rights to build structures on city-owned property. That group, Dickinson Development Group, has since ceased to form as a functioning entity due to some disagreements within the company. And because of that, the city would like to rescind that contract. And Mr. Kessel will be presenting to you on the next item a new contract with a downtown development organization. This mutual rescission of contract that is included in your exhibit materials has been agreed to, signed by Dickinson Development Group, and we would ask the City Commission to also approve this rescission of contract, which would allow us to enter into the new contract that Mr. Kessel will be discussing with you. Be happy to take any questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. Are there any questions for him or comments? Is there a motion regarding his recommendation?
Mr. President, move to rescind the contract 7/15/13.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Now, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And then we'll go to item C, and Mr. Kessel, you can introduce that item.
Thank you, President Johnson. As you heard from Mr. Colling, there was disagreements within the DDG group. Those disagreements were primarily amongst the two developers that were part of that group. There's been a lot of feedback with regard to the B3 Studios and Mr. Gary Reddick. He's provided us with a great deal of information, phasing plan, and has been a nice addition to the downtown planning process. We'd like to continue work with Mr. Reddick, and the contract that we have before you does a couple different things. The first thing is a concept design refinement for the public square. We have created a phasing plan for redevelopment in the downtown, and the public square is the focal point of that redevelopment. So he would continue to refine and illustrate the public square for purposes of later construction. The second category is a comprehensive parking plan for the downtown area. This is something that the newly formed Downtown Association has been asking for and is very excited about. So a subcontractor of Desmond and Associates would be hired to conduct a parking plan that would analyze existing conditions and make proposals for increased parking to accommodate future development. And then the third thing is further concept and design refinement for the phase development that I mentioned earlier that would include buildings and streetscapes. The major difference between these two contracts, though, is the component, the developer component. We no longer have city land tied up in the contract we're proposing with you this evening. In the other contract, the developers were on board so that they would put together a construction on the two city lots that we held. If this contract is approved this evening, and we recommend that it be, we would then do RFPs for those city lots to see that their construction would happen at a later date and by developers who are committed to those projects. So that's my summary for you this evening. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer those, but it is our recommendation to approve this contract with B3 Studios.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. Do you have any questions or comments for him,
Mr. President,
Mr. Jackson?
unless I missed it, I noticed in the scope of work there's no discussion about this work resulting, in other words, any deliverables with cost estimates. In other words, maybe there's a given half block that there's some concept. Now, I realize this is really high-level planning, and I know you can't do anything in any detail, but I think we could be given some broad ranges for new buildings.
When we had the developers on board, we had kind of some estimates, but when the thought is that if we're going to go to RFP, it'll be difficult, but I can certainly ask Mr. Reddick to add that deliverable.
This is the kind of project that I think is sometimes a challenge to make really tangible. And I think if we could start putting some early dollar numbers on some of these things, it would just take us one more step towards having something meaningful.
Okay.
And understanding that they would be a broad range.
Yeah, because the concepts are rather amorphous at this point, so it would have to be a broad range. Okay, I'll thank you for the feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Anybody else have comments? Would there be a motion then regarding either the approval or disapproval of this revised contract?
Mr. President, I'd move we approve the contract
Is there,
as presented.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion?
And I'd like to follow up with Commissioner Jackson that we contact Mr. Reddick and ask him for a supplemental bid to include what Mr. Jackson has requested.
We'll add that into the contract. Yep, thank you.
Any other comments? Not, we'll go ahead and vote on this motion. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We have a 4:45 timetable agenda item, and I think it's 4:45 on my watch. And the topic is impact of growth on maintenance of transportation corridor. And the Public Works Director Zuroff and our Community Director, Mr. Catan, are going to present this. So I'm not sure who's going first.
I will, President Johnson, and I have Brent Coulter, our street manager, here also. So I'm going to go to the podium, and I have one map that I'll bring up. I'd initially would have liked to bring a PowerPoint, but it's been a busy week, so we'll discuss it with the map. I'll bring it.
So there won't be a map behind me?
There will be a map behind you.
Okay, there will be, all right. I'll move.
President Johnson, Commission, on the PowerPoint, or on the projector there, is the snow route map of April 2013. And I wanted to show you what was the snow routes and level 1, level 2 routes that they were in April of 2013, and the changes that we have now. Let me get this to work here. On this map, the red is the level 1, the blue is the level 2, and the green is the state maintained. Things have changed in a year. Some of the west or east business loop and the west business loop are now the responsibility of the city. We also have included the interim bypass that goes north, I guess almost 3 miles, and then east a couple miles to this point. And those previously state-maintained roads and the new interim bypass have increased the mileage tremendously for the street department. And not just the mileage, but the type of roads we're maintaining. Normally, we've maintained the roads inside the city, the low speed lanes, some residential and lower speed urban roads. Now we're talking high speed roads and wide lanes. Some of the points I have in 2011, we had combined, we had 300 lane miles to maintain. In 2012, we had 325 lane miles. We just finished our pavement management plan that included in identifying all the mileage for the city, and we were at 370 lane miles to maintain with the street department. Again, the level 1 is what we have to plow first and get to. Level 2, then we get to the residential areas. And then even in the residential areas, we've now have quite a few other areas, Sundance, Coves, a lot of the Cook subdivision, and a lot of the new developments that have increased our mileage. But one thing we lack, other than just some personnel at the current time, is the equipment to plow the higher speed roads and the lane miles. One of the things we'll bring up tonight, I guess, is the request to purchase equipment to maintain that before the snow flies this fall. I'm going to let Brent talk a little bit about maybe some more specifics that he has in his department.
Some of the stuff that Mr. Zarf's already covered is our road priorities and levels of service. With the hospital being constructed on the west side of town now and the new clinic on the west side of the town, that's going to shift to a priority, number 2 priority road or on our emergency route. Our current snow route, everything that we have been plowing up until this point has been roughly a 35 mile an hour or under road. As soon as we get out onto the east and west loops, the speed limits pick up. Interim bypass, we expect to be heavily traveled by trucks all winter long, and being that it is a state-funded road, it is now a priority 1 road. So that will take equipment outside of the city out to there in order to maintain it 24/7. That's part of the reason for the need of a new high-speed plow truck. It'll be equipped similarly to the DOT's trucks with a front plow, an underbody, and a wing pre-wet system. The truck will be able to be used year-round because you can drop those attachments off of it, use them out as a regular tandem. One of our difficulties right now is if we go off of the state bid, which is a very good option for us, we're about 220 days out of taking delivery on one of those because the state currently has 21 trucks being built, along with several of our surrounding states. So this initial first truck is going to be at an increased cost to us. DOT, I believe, is at $183,000 per truck for the bid. This truck, the first truck, will be very close to $205,000 to $210,000 complete in order to receive it beforehand. Another issue is the rising cost of our materials. The geomelt that we've been using for our pre-wet, the DOT has currently had to rebid and get new prices in. Last year we were paying 91 cents a gallon. This year it has gone up to $1.25 a gallon. Also with the salt, due to the increased cost of getting the salt out of Canada and coming across the border, the DOT has also decided that they will rebid their salt contracts, so we will try to get one closer to us. Hopefully that will bring the costs down. We're not sure where that impact is going to lead us yet. But for right now, our immediate needs to support that interim bypass with its additional lane miles, the parts of 21st that head out to Radar Base Hill and the additional lane miles on North Dakota 22 is basically that plow truck up front. That way I do not have to pull any more equipment out of the city to maintain that. As you guys remember going through last winter, it was a chore, and even when we brought in the contractors, traffic's there, parking's an issue, we got schools to open, new routes are coming on all the time, and our priorities are changing. So it's time for us to kind of consider it too.
I guess to sum it up quick is, right now we feel we need a plow truck, a higher speed truck to maintain those roads. And then kind of a preamble to, I guess, budget too, on what we're going to bring to budget. We feel we need a brine system and some additional tools, I guess, in our tool chest to get the snow and the level of service that the commission wants. And that will be part of our budget process, I guess, at what level we want to remove snow and maintain the roads. So, President Johnson, I guess I don't know from here, but I would like permission, I guess, to purchase a plow truck, or I'll take any questions on what that you might have or the commission may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions by commissioners?
I get the feeling that you're going to need more than one truck, right?
What I'd like to do is get one truck, right now, ordered, and then maybe have another one on the state bid list. If it takes 200 days to get, it'd be nice to purchase two. And because we know the second one will come after the first of the year. If we can get one truck to get us through this fall, second one coming in early spring, that seems to have been when we would get those spring snowstorms that are really heavy. We'll have that in our arsenal to fight snow. And then we'll bring some other items, hopefully less expensive items, to the budget that we'll have and be able to purchase after the first of the year.
Mr. President, I would just like to add, in addition to that, building and sites, we maintain the right-of-ways, and these are additional right-of-ways that we need to take on. There will be portions of the, as you've seen in the presentation, portion of the East Business Loop that DOT in times past has taken care of, that now is a responsibility of the city. That's true on the west side as well, and the entire truck route. So we will have to maintain, or at least mow, those portions even though they're outside the city. So it'll be plowing in the wintertime, and it'll be mowing in the summertime. Right now we're looking at what equipment, because that's a specialized equipment to do those wider trenches, that we will need to work with. So we'll be working with Brent, and maybe we could do a collaborative effort on trying to minimize the cost with respect to the city. So I don't have that information at this point. It's not the urgent one. The urgent one is for the winter time, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. That will be part of the items that we'll be bringing forth in the subsequent budget for next year.
Okay. Any other comments?
I realize the conversation tonight is mostly about snow, but you have to seal cracks and do seal coats too. And yeah, I think we've always recognized we're going to need more equipment as time goes by, and this is what's triggering it, I guess. You'd probably find somebody, Ed, to hay those ditches for you if you'd like to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Other comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Steiner.
Mr. Zuroff, you're recommending $210,000 for this truck.
Yes, I believe so. And then I think, I guess I don't know on the other one if we can get it on like the state bid to get that, working for purchase next year. But I think the purchase of the truck is probably, without state bid, we'd be looking at over $200,000.
Are you requesting that it be purchased out of this year's funds budget?
If we take, if we purchase it this year, I guess, yes.
Do you recommend it be purchased out of your budget, or Mr. Kessel, help me out here? Where will the funds come from, purchase this year?
When we discussed this equipment need, my recollection was that they would bill for it in 2015, but that we could acquire the vehicle in 2014. So that it would be essentially a 2015 budget item that'd be pre-approved in 14 in order to make the long lead times.
And that might work, but I don't think it's necessary because a purchase of this size, I think the city would do finance it, which would mean it's going to come out of that capital expenditure finance account, and it would be financed over 5 years. It would be, $44,000 a year. So even if we took delivery this year, it would go to that fund, and we're going to be close enough budget-wise that, if we put $44,000 into this year, it's not going to hurt us. But because we're borrowing money in that fund, if I remember right, about 2%. So it would make more sense for us to do the equipment lease like you've done with your other major pieces of equipment, in my view at least.
And President Johnson, I would appreciate that, and then maybe the second one we could do through budget, because it would be preferable to take, to get it early this fall and purchase it.
Well, technically, you're going to do them both through budget. The first one, we would amend the budget, and the second one, we would budget for. But I mean, chances are it'll be that same lease purchase, so it's just going to go through, I forget the proper name for the account, but it's an equipment financing account, and there aren't too many pieces of equipment that we're not financing. The smaller purchases are probably just outright cash, but a larger purchase like this, I mean, even if we weren't in the middle of an oil impact area, you'd still probably finance this over 5 years. So the short answer is I don't think it has a significant impact on this year's budget. I would say we ought to just authorize the purchase of the truck or the procurement of the truck, and then we'll probably run this through that equipment financing program.
Appreciate that, President Johnson. I guess I believe too, a question for Mr. Colling. We're under a timeline here, and I guess that's why I'm here. Equipment purchase of that size, I would have to bid. I know there's very few places that do build these trucks. I just would like to get it in place before snow flies.
Mr. President, Commissioners, I think we can work through our procurement ordinance and the restrictions that we have in that in order to secure the equipment in a reasonable amount of time. I don't think that should be an issue for us.
I think for the commission here, if you agree with going ahead with this, we just simply have to pass a motion authorizing the procurement of this vehicle, and later in the year you will make the budget amendments to accommodate not only this change, but there will be several others. I mean, every year there is.
Right. Every department's changing dramatically, and I will be requesting a lot of changes at budget hearings.
Mr. President, I'd make that motion that we allow Mrs. Zurich to hammer out the details on this truck.
I'll second that.
We have the motion granting the request to procure the truck and the second. Are there any other discussion? Hearing none, then we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Olmans?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, President Johnson,
Okay.
Commission.
We have a 5 o'clock timetable agenda item, and that is to hear a report by Apex Engineering. They'll give us an update on several of their projects that they're involved in. And here representing Apex is Carla Olson and Mike Berg. I assume you have PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll get out of your way.
President, Commissioners, City staff, thanks for having us here tonight. It's pretty exciting for Mike and I to be here as we're nearing the finish line on all these projects that we've been talking about with a lot of you guys for the last 5 years, or even maybe more. So with that, I'll just get going. It's an update on the status of our projects, the larger projects that are going on within the city. I'm going to start out with the water reclamation facility overview and status. I'll continue with the influent pump station overview and status, and then Mike will conclude with the West Pump Station project overview and status, and then we'll have time for any questions. If any of you have questions as I'm going through, feel free to stop me and we can discuss at that time as well. First of all, the water reclamation facility. I was here, it was quite a few months ago, talking about where we were at, and I had quite a few construction pictures. I did leave a number of those in just because I think they're interesting to see how far we've come and where we started. So I'll start with the pre-treatment facility. You can see this is the overall plant layout. And I'll start at the front of the plant with the pre-treatment facility. You can see this was last year as we're just beginning to start. Here's a progress picture, probably in the fall of last year. And now here's where it sits now, completed. This building is probably 95% done. The painting was completed last week. The equipment's been checked out and started up, so this building is pretty well ready to go. The next part of the facility is the IFAS tanks. That's the main biological process. And there's no building associated with this. It's just some tanks in the ground, 24 feet deep. You can see here they're preparing the base. This was one of the first areas they got going on, so this was likely the fall of 2012. You can see all the rebar being placed and slabs being placed along with walls. And here's where it sits now. Again, that area of the plant is pretty well done. The handrails on. All of the equipment's on the inside. These are aeration laterals in the screen. And in fact, they filled it up last week. I didn't take a picture today because you couldn't see all the equipment in it, but filled it up with water and tested the aeration equipment, and all that is running as well. Then the final clarifiers, again, those are tanks. Here's as they're starting the excavation. Those are quite deep in the ground as well. There's a circular mat. There they're placing it. And the walls. And here's where they sit today. The equipment's in, it's been tested. The domes are on, so that is also ready to go. The UV administration building, that's one of the last buildings they started with because the office space wasn't as critical to getting the whole plant running and the equipment up and running. So that was at the end of their critical path items. But here's their excavation for the clear well. That's where we'll be storing our reuse water. Here as they're building that clear well. And here's where it sits today. The roof is on, it's watertight. The UV side of it, which is the disinfection side, the last step before it's discharged or sent out for reuse, is complete. Right now they're doing the drywall on the office space, so there's some tiling and painting and some finish work to be done yet. Process control building, that houses a lot of the blowers and electrical equipment for the facility. Here they're beginning the construction, placing the basement. We have a lot of pumps that sit in the basement in this building, the bridge crane. Here the walls went up, and here's the completed building. That again, everything, all the equipment's been checked out, and that building's up and running. Biosolids digesters, I think when I was here last, this was the area that they were working on. This is a 26-foot deep tank. Here they're placing walls and slab. That's the finished tanks look like before they're backfilled. And here you can see, those are those tanks. You can't even tell the magnitude of how deep those are at this point, but all the equipment's in. There's a cover on that, and the building for the blowers has also been placed and installed. A little bit on the storage tanks, you could see those in the background. There's the foundation, and that's where they sit today. Those tanks are also complete. So you can see we've come a long way. Substantial completion. A lot of the equipment's been started up, but we're looking at getting everything water flowing and everything going online in August. And then the final completion in October. As you can see, there's still seeding and a lot of the site work. So visually, it's still a little messy out there, but all of that stuff comes in the end once all the equipment's been checked out and everything's up and running. The contract status, you can see we're up at 90% for a number of the items. The only one behind a little bit is Williams. That's just because they have to wait till everyone else is done to get some of their ductwork in, and that really doesn't hold up the process side on getting things going. Change orders, I think all three have been run through commission. The last one was in April. Right now we have just around $120,000 in change orders. And you can see the 5% budgeted in the loan was $1.5 million, which means we're doing very well. Because we haven't utilized all that, we're going to be able to use some underground piping that goes to the reuse booster station under this project instead of using another loan for that. So since we came in under budget on this, we can apply a future project to this project and use the funds that way. So they'll be doing that change order in the upcoming weeks, and it's basically taking reuse water from the plant down to the new booster station. So you may be seeing that come through commission in the next couple of months. Influent pump station. This, if you remember, is the new pump station that will collect city wastewater flow from its current location, and then also with all the growth coming on the west side of town and the Dakota Prairie refinery waste, and that's coming from the project Mike will be talking about. But this station is nearly up and running as well. Here's the building as they're putting in the walls. Today, here you see the roofs on. There's a little bit of finish work and painting to be done inside, but the pumps are in, the valves and piping, everything's in. Pretty much all we have left is finished painting. There's a small stretch of force main that needs to be installed yet for this project, but this also is nearly complete, ready for the August completion date and final completion in October. The contract status, you can see here, we're in the 80s to nearly 90 for all the contractors. And change orders, we've had none to date. There have been a couple things that have come up with some changes to some fencing and a couple core drilling, but we're under $10,000. And again, our budgeted 5% is $492,000. So we're doing very well with that project as well. And now I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay. West Pump Station is located out by West Business Loop and Old Highway 10. This is a view of looking north from Old Highway 10. It's been a deep hole in the ground for the last month and a half. Now they've come up to grade. Precast will start showing up this week, and within 2 weeks it'll look like a building out there. The valves and piping are placed inside the pump station, and the pumps will be placed within the next 2 or 3 weeks. A lot of this project is a pipeline that pumps from West Business Loop and Old Highway 10 through South Dickinson all the way to the Influent pump station by the stockyards. We have about 3.5 miles of pipe. There's 2 river crossings. This river crossing is down by the stockyards, and this was completed just last week. Our completion date is October of this year, with a final completion July of next year. It's currently on schedule for completion in October. October 3rd is our contractual completion date. Our contract status, Williams Civil is at 51% completion. Williams Mechanical is at 6% completion, and Colstrip Electric is at 4% completion. The electrical and mechanical haven't really had a chance to get into the pump station and work yet. Once the precast is placed and it's watertight, they'll get heavily involved. Change orders. This project, when we go through an old part of town or any developed area, a little more complicated. To date, we've had about $28,000 in accepted change orders. There are pending change orders, avoidance of unknown utilities at the Hart River, relocation of water main valves along 5th Street. We have emergency bypassing of Lift Station 5, replacing the existing AC force main at Lift Station 5, and a deduct for some gravel roadways. We also have a number of disputed change orders or change order requests that we've disputed in that we feel they aren't supported based on our contract documents. One of them is a claim of differing subsurface conditions on 5th Street. Our budgeted project changes was $635,000. That finishes the update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. The question was what the rough estimate is for the pending change orders. I don't have those numbers handy right now, but I can get them to you here in probably tomorrow. The avoidance of unknown utilities at the Hart River is about $18,000. Relocation of water main valves is $16,000 to $18,000. Emergency bypassing of Lift Station 5. I'm just getting those costs in, so I don't have a good feel for that yet. And same with replacement of the existing Lift Station 5 AC force main. The deduct for gravel roadways, I'm probably looking at ballpark, maybe a $20,000 to $30,000 deduct.
Are there other questions or comments on these projects? All right, well, appreciate the update, and, you know, on the two major, well, I guess they're all major projects, I mean, it looks like we've done very well in terms of managing the costs on them, and you're pretty much right on schedule, so. Do we have any chance of not meeting our schedule over the dispute of the change orders? Was it on 5th Street?
Mm-hmm. We had pretty lengthy discussion with the general contractor on Thursday after the project meeting. And at that project meeting, both the general contractor and their main subcontractor that are dealing with the pump station said again that they're on schedule for completing on October 3rd. They said that one of that issue probably needs to get figured out in the next couple weeks, where it'll start impacting that schedule.
And that not only impacts our city, that impacts the refinery.
Yes.
President Johnson, we do have some alternatives. Some of the problems with the subsurface conditions and the depth of rerouting some of the gravity. I mean, there are options we have that we can possibly eliminate some portions and still have the capability of taking the refinery's wastewater. So we are looking at some alternatives.
That's right. We have contingency plans.
Excuse me, Mr. Berg, what'd you say?
We have contingency plans.
Oh, contingency plans. Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Anything else here? All right. Well, thank you both very much for being here.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to drop back down to the non-timetable agenda. And item D is the financial report. Mr. Kessel, anything you want to say about city finances?
There's one account called the Building Construction Fund that's getting rather large. We have had, as a commission, you have approved some bonds that we have available to us so that we can move some of those expenses to the bond funds. Hopefully we'll be able to do that shortly. We did run into an audit issue with that, but we hope to update that and fully utilize the revenues or revenue sources that are available to us. They may not be reflected that well on the report today. So
What you're referring to is there's a large negative balance
Yeah.
in the building construction fund, but you have large cash balances in the oil impact fund and the revenue or the bond fund. And-
Exactly.
And when you're able to make the accounting entries to transfer monies from those two funds into the building construction fund, you'll either eliminate the negative or greatly reduce it.
that's exactly correct. Better said than I did. Thank you.
Any other comments that you'd like to make?
Unless there's specific questions, I would limit my comments to those.
Okay. The operating expenses look like they're in line to me through the first 6 months of the year. The sales tax revenue through the first 6 months of the year, if I recall right, is up about 18%. I wouldn't, I guess, I'd be greatly surprised if we finish the year up 18%, but I wouldn't be so surprised if we were up somewhere between, say, 10 and
10,
15. Yeah. But it's still very reflective of a strong local economy, so. Any questions by commissioners? If not, would there be a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have the motion, the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Olmans?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We'll hear the HR Hiring Journal monthly report, and Mrs. Nominuk will give that report.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. We'll start off with police officer. Right now, we have one opening for police officer, and we are at a second interview phase of that position. Animal control officer, we actually have that position open so just recently, so it has not been filled. And that is the second position. We'll have two full-time positions there. Sanitation operator, we have one opening right now, and there is an offer pending on that. So we have completed interviews. Senior sanitation operator, this is a position, a promotional opportunity within the department that's been open for some time, and we just recently opened, or been available. We just recently opened that, and we'll be taking applications for that. Street maintenance operator, we've just recently had a couple people leave us in the street department, so now we're up to 3 openings again for street operator. And that was just opened. The wastewater plant operator and chief operator, we're in the interview process right now for the chief operator. We did some interviews today, and we have some later on in the week. So we'll see how that goes for us. We have hired 2 operators for the wastewater treatment plant. We have 1 more to fill for that. And we have a water utility, we have an individual retiring in water utilities, so we'll have 2 operators for water. Property appraiser technician, we just filled that position. We hired an administrative assistant for Public Works just real recently. Museum assistant, we just made an offer on that position, and it was accepted. However, it'll be a little while till that person moves here yet. We had a new librarian position open that was filled with one of their internal seasonal library assistants. So that is leaving us with several limited hour library positions open. So we've had a couple people who have left, are putting their time in after summer. So we're interviewing right now, trying to fill those positions. We had a mechanic position open, interviewed. We only had 1 applicant, so at this time we're not advertising that one. We're going to wait a little bit, and we'll be advertising probably towards the end of the summer. We just opened up an admin assistant for our engineering department. That person is leaving us and moving back home. Sanitation laborer position just opened up this week. And that's everything. Any questions?
So, are you making any progress, or do you feel like we're just kind of, you get one position filled, another one opens, and...
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of how it feels.
Yeah.
Some days it feels like there's a lot of progress, and then tomorrow's a different story.
'cause
But-
it seems like whenever you report, you have
Yeah,
several openings, and tonight was no different.
yeah.
Are you seeing any, I mean, do you see any change in applications? Like, are we actually getting applications for all positions? Are you getting multiple applications, or has it been pretty much
You
the
know,
way it used to be?
yeah, not a lot. Administrative assistant, as you can see, we had 23 applicants, which is nice to see. Although 15 of them were disqualified, which means either they didn't pass the required test or they didn't fill out the questionnaire that we require. Different reasons would disqualify them. So, you know, that really limited how many people we actually had for our interview pool. Other than that position, our numbers are very small. Six at the most is what we're seeing for total applicants.
Okay.
And our system allows us to interview 7 applicants, so we're not even scoring for most positions.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Mr. Kessel?
I'd just like to give the commission an update on Mr. Crane. Mr. Crane is the Deputy City Administrator for Finance Administrative Services. We offered the position to. He accepted that position, very excited about coming to Dickinson. We had a date set, and unfortunately, his father-in-law has become gravely ill. His wife is from Australia, and she has since gone to his side to be with him, thereby meaning Mr. Crane has to stay with their kids. So it is a very difficult situation for the family and for us. As of this time, he's trying to work through some details. He's got an adult child as well, an adult daughter who may be able to provide care to the kids that are still in the home. And if she's able to come back and do that, then he would come to Dickinson. If that is not possible, we may have to begin again with our search for a deputy city administrator position. So I'll continue to keep you updated. We're hopeful that Mr. Crane will be able to come, but realistically, there's certainly a chance that he may not.
Mr. Kessel, how long are we willing to wait?
Not much longer. We've been without this position since October, without a finance director position since October. Our accounting staff specifically has been working a great deal of overtime. I'm concerned that they're going to get burned out, and I don't think that we've been doing the commission justice either in terms of the reporting that you've been getting. So not much longer.
How many interviews have we done with different applicants?
We would have to start the process over completely.
How many have we prior to this hiring, Mr. Crane?
We had, I think, 4 applicants. We interviewed 3 of them and made the offer to Mr. Crane.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Kessel, before we go to the 5:30 timetable, I think you might be able to do 1 or 2 of your report items, and then we'll have to interrupt you.
Okay, why don't we do the one that was added to the report? Most recently, we issued water restrictions for the city of Dickinson. I want to just walk through some of the material that led us up to making that decision, and then I'll let Attorney Coling go through the document that was handed out this evening. First of all, we have approximately 5, well, not approximately, we have exactly 5 water towers or tanks in town that can hold just under 3.4 million gallons of water storage. We do have access to a 6 million gallon clear well at the water treatment facility, but this is a shared storage with Southwest Water. We also have made a connection between Southwest Water's potable water line and our system. In the case of emergencies, we can open up that pipe and utilize it, but it's only in the case of emergencies. Emergencies such as a large-scale fire, a large-scale water break in one of our potable water lines, things of that nature. It is a 6-inch line that would be able to provide us with pressure and water in pressure zone 2. And when I say pressure zone 2, you can think north of the interstate and west of State Avenue. That pretty much encompasses pressure zone 2. So recently, on July 16th, in a 36-hour period, our million-gallon tank, which serves as the primary water storage area for pressure zone 2, emptied out on 3 separate occasions over a 36-hour period, beginning July 16th. Once that happens, water is then drawn from the 4th Avenue East tank to supply pressure zone 2. We have 5 high-service pumps, and all of them are running at capacity. We also have 2 booster pumps that were also running at capacity. That is the reason why we issued the water restrictions, in order to allow recovery of the water tanks. All of the indications that we had were that those tanks were going to have a difficult time recovering, and it was putting in jeopardy our ability to provide fire protection in pressure zone 2. Obviously, we don't take issuing a restriction lightly. We want to make sure that we have adequate water for residents, as I said, for fire protection. And there's also a hazard that if there isn't enough water in the lines themselves, the pressures that are if the pressures get too low, we could jeopardize existing infrastructure. Meaning, if the fire department hooked on and tried to draw water, it could actually collapse pipes. So those are the 3 reasons why the water restrictions were made. We have a 6 million gallon capacity, or Southwest Water treats 6 million gallons a day for the city of Dickinson. We were approaching that number. We got up to about 5.6 on Thursday, July 17th. Southwest Water can produce up to 12 million gallons. They are currently producing in the 9 range, between 9 and 10. So they do have production capacity available to us. It's simply difficult for us to push that water out into the system, especially in pressure zone 2. So we did spend a lot of time this morning discussing what the future will hold in terms of water conservation measures, and we created 2 phases. Phase 1 water restrictions would be limited to just lawn watering and hydrant testing and flushing. Hydrant testing and flushing is a city activity that is primarily performed by our fire department, but lawn watering would apply to all residential, public, industrial, and commercial users. We believe that, well, it's been proven that by just the simple measures that were taken this weekend, and I want to say thank you to all of the people who complied with that watering ban, because it did help. We've dropped from about 5.6 million gallons of use to about 3.6 gallons of use in just 2 short days. So a big kudos to all of those people who have complied with the water ban. What we'd also like to suggest is that odd-numbered addresses can water on odd-numbered days, and even-numbered addresses can water on even-numbered days, but that nobody should be watering their lawn between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on any day. We will still operate the coin-operated water vendors located on down by the water building on Broadway, and bulk water permit holders can still operate. This is primarily due to the fact that they're located in Pressure Zone 1. We have much better capabilities of providing full water use in Pressure Zone 1 than we do in Pressure Zone 2. In Phase 2 of water restrictions, and we are not recommending those at this time, we are recommending Phase 1 water conservation members, but Phase 2 would include everything in Phase 1, plus we would restrict coin-operated and the bulk water permit holders that I mentioned. We would also restrict car washes and any outdoor use of water, which would include dust control, personal vehicle washing, water for gardens, water for flowers, water for pools, recreational pools, things of that nature. And then we'd also have any city infrastructure projects that are currently under construction and may need water, that they use the raw water vendor that Southwest Water operates on the east side of town, rather than utilizing potable water sources. We did anticipate these concerns. We have several different water projects that are currently under construction and are designed to alleviate these issues that we're currently experiencing. The million-gallon Northwest Water Tower is supposed to be complete by the spring of 2015. The west dedicated line should be complete in 2015. The east dedicated line also complete in 2015. And probably the most important is the finished water pump station. That should be completed by the fall of 2015. This was our third highest priority and is a partnership project between the city, Southwest Water, and the State Water Commission. That project is under construction, but due to its complexity, will take some time to complete. And then we also have 2 task orders on the agenda this evening for booster stations and an east side 500-gallon water storage tank. Upon completion of all of these projects, we feel that we'll have adequate capacity to deal with the demand that is made on our system. Just one final comment regarding enforcement. You know, the compliance that we've had so far, as I said, has been pretty good. It has lowered the demand, and we're very appreciative of that. If it gets to the point where we have to enforce the water ban in order to make sure that there is even lower use, we will ask first offenses. We'll simply notify them either by writing or by door hangers that they should not be watering on the days that they were. And then after that, it would be a code violation, which could result in an infraction and a $1,000 fine per occurrence. We certainly hope it doesn't get to that, but we do have that available if it does. If the violation is egregious enough, we would skip the warning and go straight to the infraction and code violation process. So the team, I want to thank them all this morning for going through and making these recommendations for you this evening. I think Attorney Colling has put them together in a document for you today. So, Mr. Colling.
Mr. President and Commissioners, what was placed in front of you just prior to tonight's meeting is an order enacting the Phase 1 restrictions that Mr. Kessel referred to. As you know, President Johnson issued an order on Friday implementing the watering ban that did allow our tanks to refill to some extent. And this order would supplant that. It does enact the Phase 1 restrictions. It would be a prohibition on watering of lawns from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. each day, and then allowing the watering of lawns, odd-numbered properties on odd days, and even-numbered properties on even days from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. This would apply to only those properties that are making use of the municipal water system. Properties that are on wells or drawing water from some other source would not be affected by this order. I'd be happy to take any questions regarding the order. If you do approve it, we would implement those water restrictions at the soonest possible moment.
Thank you, Mr. Colling and Mr. Kessel. Are there any comments or questions by commissioners?
Mr. President, I think it's important that we repeat a part of what Mr. Kessel already said, and that people in Dickinson know that this was not unanticipated. 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, when we finished the comprehensive plan and we did the infrastructure modeling that went along with that comprehensive plan, we anticipated this in the summer of 2015 or 2014. We also knew that we'd be able to take care of it within a few months after that. So things really are on track. We've got probably 6 weeks of summer watering left, I suppose, something like that. But again, I think it's important that our citizens know that we did anticipate this. We knew that it might happen. We don't like it when it has to happen, but we'll work our way through it.
I guess one thing to add, just for clarification, is the interpretation of this. When you say that even number homes can water on even number days, we're going by calendar days. We're not doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It's by the calendar day that we're doing this. And so if you're an odd-numbered property and tomorrow is the 21st, that is your watering day. But the hours go from 7 at night till 7 in the morning. So we actually cross over from an odd day to an even day. So if you're an odd home on an odd day tomorrow, you could technically water from 7 at night till midnight, but then you become an even-numbered home and an even watering day at 12:01. So if you are an odd-numbered home, you can either water from 7 till midnight, or you would set your sprinklers to come on at 12:01 if you're an even number and have it wrapped up before 7 in the morning is the thing. So we're not giving them a 12-hour stretch in which to water. Is that how I'm understanding this?
I think you've said it very well.
Yeah, Commissioner Olmans, I think that's correct. We anticipate people are going to be reasonable about this, and we don't anticipate anyone wants to water their yard for 12 hours straight. So,
right.
So I think if people understand what their address is and what the day of the week is, or the numerical day of the month, then we should be fine.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I should make one more comment. I did have a conversation with the park director today, and some people may have noticed that they were watering some of their properties. They do have wells that they have access to and surface water to water the golf course primarily with. That is water taken out of the river specifically, and then they have wells for some of their other properties. So they have complied with the ban. And they do share a well with the high school and with Dickinson State University. So if you see those public institutions watering, it is most likely they're using well water and not potable water for those watering or for those irrigation purposes.
And the outdoor water park will open on Friday?
Yes, it'll open when it's scheduled, but
Yeah.
yes, those pools are full and they're ready to go.
Anything else?
President Johnson, I would like to add one thing. Looking at our trends and our graphs of our water reservoirs and the usage, it seems that some of the most difficult times were from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. Usually, we're recovering our tanks at that time. It seems that the water department thinks that a lot of that in pressure zone 2 on that north side is all the new residential. And most all that new residential has automatic sprinklers. And it seems like everybody decided to set their time at 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. I guess one thing I'd just like to put out is if you see, your neighbor sprinkling, or you see the whole neighborhood that they have their timers set at 4, please try to move it around at different times a little bit. And I think that will really help along with the odd even days.
Okay, thank you. So I think the motion they're looking for is a motion that would approve the order regarding the temporary emergency water shortages.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote then. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay, we're a little late here, but we're going to the timetable agenda. At 5:30, we have a issue regarding the 40th Street Special Assessment District. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have Mr. Colling introduce this item, and then I'm going to treat it just like it was a hearing, and we're going to invite any citizens that wish to comment regarding the resolution that Mr. Collins is going to present to come to the podium. You can state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Okay. So, Mr. Colling, we'll go ahead and start with you, and you can explain this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. The resolution before you in your packets is a resolution creating a water and sewer improvement special assessment district. This district covers all properties that are adjacent to 40th Street West from Highway 22 to, I believe it's 4th Avenue East is the eastern boundary of that district. This would be concurrent with the 40th Street project, which has been task ordered and designed by KLJ. This resolution would simply create the district as a water and sewer district. It does not commit the city or any other party to specific amounts of special assessments that would be imposed against any property within the district. That the actual amount of special assessments assessed against the property would happen at a later date when the Special Assessment Commission would meet, would determine the cost of the project, the water and sewer improvements that were part of this project, and then determine the amount in which each individual property was benefited by the project. There is an engineering report that has been compiled by KLJ that is in your packets as well, describes some of the details of the project and gives some estimates about what we would anticipate the specific special assessments would be against properties if the project comes in at the estimate that we have included within the engineer's report. Again, though, this resolution doesn't commit the city to those special assessments. It simply creates the district and allows us to move forward with this project. City staff do believe the project is important, not only for those properties along 40th, but for the city as a whole as well. This is anticipated, I believe, to be about a $7 or $7.5 million project in whole. And what we are looking at doing with this water and sewer district is special assessing about $1.5 million of the cost of that. That is the total anticipated cost of the water and sewer portions of the project. The road and the storm water or storm sewer portions of this project would be funded by the city. I should mention as well, with this water and sewer district pursuant to Century Code, it is a non-protestable district. When you do a special assessment district that is for a road, Century Code requires that we publish a resolution of necessity and that property owners within the affected district can file written protests to that district. And if more than half of the landowners representing more than half of the district file protests, then it is a bar to proceeding. However, Century Code does provide that with water and sewer districts, it is a matter of public health, safety, and welfare, and therefore it is a non-protestable district. If you as a City Commission believe that we should proceed with the water and sewer district, it would not be able to be protested out by those affected landowners. Mr. President, I'd be happy to take any questions with respect to the resolution or the process from here forward if you have them.
Okay, before we start with the hearing period, are there any questions for Mr. Colling by commissioners?
Mr. President, just for clarification, Mr. Colling, we plan to do the street project, but the special assessment side for the district is just for the water and sewer.
That's correct, Commissioner Steiner, yes.
Any other questions?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes.
The anticipated cost is 7.5, around there. If we're figuring out that it's probably about 1.5 is what's going to be needed from the landowners. Now, if we come in at a lower, are we going to maintain our end and then divide the 1 point, let's say it's 1 instead of 1.5?
Commissioner Decker, I think that's a matter of discretion for you as a city commission. The amount of money that you wish to appropriate from city funds into this project is a matter of your discretion. If you want to appropriate $7 million or $5 million or $5.5, that's a matter that you can decide as a commission. We'll have to see where bids come in. If bids come in at, say, $1 million for the water and sewer portion of the project, then it would be only the water and sewer portion that we'll be able to assess against the properties. So any decrease in the bid amount for the water and sewer district would come to the benefit of those property owners that are adjacent to 40th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Colling, for further clarification, when the bid documents are put together, it won't just be a lump sum for the entire project. It'll break out the components of the project. So, so we'll know, according to the bid documents, the actual bid, what the price is for the water, the sewer, and for the curb and gutter, and for the stormwater. I mean, these are all separate items.
That's correct, Mr. President. We anticipate bidding out the entire project all at one time, but it will be bid out under separate schedules for the water and sewer, the stormwater, and the street.
Right. And so we would have, once you see the numbers, I mean, we can't special assess any more than what is bid for the water and sewer, but we could special assess less if we chose to.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? All right. So those of you who would like to comment regarding this issue may do so now. I'll just ask you to come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments.
Mr. President, members of the Commission, my name is Melanie Catherine. I'm a co-owner of Catherine Trucking. And my question involves a statement that Mr. Colling made about the extent of the Special Assessment District. He said that it would stop at 4th Avenue, is that correct? But in addition to that, that it would include the same region of the Special Assessment District in the past. Our property is on the edge of the district that was proposed in the past, but was the only property included on the north side of the street. So on 40th Street, our property was on the edge. My understanding is the street was not to extend in front of our property. And in addition to that, the property to the south of us was not included. So I'm curious as to if 4th Avenue is alongside of our property, and then if that's the case, will we be included in the district? As was stated, it's the same as it was previously. The district would include the same individuals.
I'm looking at the chart and I'm not seeing any special assessment for her business. But Is that?
That is correct, Commissioner Olson. There is no anticipated special assessment for the Catherine property. That is because that property is currently outside of city limits. We would not be able to special assess anything against that property. It is included in the district at the recommendation of our engineering consultant, principally because there is some measure of improvement that will be made to that property. And there's some right-of-way that is required in order to extend the road out. I think, as to whether that property should be in the district or outside of it, there's no particular water or sewer benefit being made to that property. Mr. Kubis may want to comment on the engineering aspects of it. But I think that's a property we've had some discussion about, and I'm not sure that we've come to a great conclusion among city staff about that property.
So before we go on, can we address the south part that she's talking about? Because it doesn't intend to be improved by this?
The property to the south of the Catherine property is annexed into city limits already. That came in with, I believe, the North Industries addition annexation that's part of that plat, and it already has water and sewer service to it. So that is why that property was taken out of the district.
Mr. Kubis?
I guess I would add, in following on what Mr. Colling had said, it's really an acknowledgement that there is some potential or future benefit to the property, but realizing that at this time it's a property outside of city limits. We didn't assess any dollars towards it, but included it in the assessment district. I guess in my mind as an acknowledgement of the benefit to the property. Maybe it's 20 years in the future, but they potentially could receive the same benefit as other properties, just not at this time.
But because they're in the county, you don't believe there would be a special assessment against that property?
No, we were only able to collect special assessments against properties within city limits. Since this property is outside of city limits, there would be no possibility of collecting the assessment against the property.
And this is something that I'm not sure I understand, but is there a chance then that will move the commission to try to include that property in the city limits in the future?
The boundaries of annexation, I think, are subject to the commission's discretion. We've been through annexation proceedings before, and I think the commissioners are aware of the requirements of how much land area we would need in order to essentially annex a property involuntarily. I don't recall, I don't think there has been any attempt to annex this property in the recent past. I don't know if there's any desire among commissioners or city staff to annex it in the future.
If there isn't a benefit to our property in the near future or for the foreseeable 20 years, I would ask that the commission remove us from this special assessment district.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to comment?
Good afternoon, guys. A couple questions, I guess, for Mr. Kubis is if this is going to be bid in September, correct? And when is the start of construction? And when would construction be completed for the water and sewer?
Mr. President, Commission, the schedule is laid out in the engineer's report. Does talk about a late August bid letting, and then expediting the award of that contract as soon as possible afterwards. What we show is September 1 of this year, and then the construction timeframe just for the water and sewer, understanding that that's a critical component of the project, would be in September and October of this year. The remainder of the project that wouldn't be included as part of the special improvement district would be a completion date sometime in 2015.
What happens if it doesn't get completed and I'm without water when I'm ready to open?
Contractually, we have liquidated damages that are assessed against contractor as damages for not being completed on time, understanding there's a cost to the users and to the public of not having those improvements made.
But it still be bid as a whole? The street, water, stormwater, everything
Correct.
with this bid? It'll be broke down into water and sewer?
We would have
road
it-
and ground.
an interim completion date for the water and sewer, and then a final completion date for the entire project.
Can I get a copy of it or look at it or anything like that, or beforehand? Of the district, or
You want
what's
the,
looking
you
at?
want a copy of the engineer's report?
Yeah, or no, a resolution or what's looking or type situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's all public record. You can have a copy of anything you want.
After the meeting it'll be available or what? Pretty much.
I think there's a copy in the back of the room right now.
No, I guess I didn't see it. I just seen the agenda. I didn't see whatever. I guess what we're looking at is when the last meeting I had with Mr. Kessel, and we were talking about temporary hookups and things like that, because we thought it was going to be bid out this fall for next spring type situation. So I guess we got thrown for a little bit of a loop and didn't realize this was happening. But
Well,
that
I
was our
re-
last conversation, correct?
No, I was at a meeting that you were at, and we talked about doing this exactly this way, where the water and sewer would be done just as Mr. Kubas said, and that the street portion would be done in 2015. There is not enough time to do the entire project this year, but we know the water and sewer is a critical part to this year.
Correct.
Oh,
I had a meeting with
yeah.
Mr. Kessel after that.
Okay.
Mr. Fitter brought up his idea that they could do a temporary hookup from a different location than 40th Street. And the discussion was that they would be, if it could be done, it would be temporary. They needed to acquire an easement to go across another property owner's property. What they didn't have, they had made contact, but didn't have that discussion yet, or at least finalized that yet.
It wasn't finalized yet.
Yeah. And then the ensuing discussion after that was that they would have to dispose of that temporary connection, cap it, and connect to this project once it becomes available. That's what Mr. Fitterer proposed during that conversation.
I just had an understanding that was the way we were going to go, so, but it's fine.
So, Mr. Fitter, with a completion date of
No later than 1st November.
Yeah.
For water and sewer.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that works.
Well,
Yes.
it'll have to. Right now. The only other thing is too is, with our building, the permit, we also have temporary, culverts for our approaches and things like that. That an expense that I'm gonna have, because I'll have to build them, take them out, and do whatever, after 140th Street is built. Or is that something the city's looking to help out with or not, or?
If we wanted to, we could sure include that in the construction project. Removal of a culvert's a pretty simple thing. Again, it's just a matter of agreeing to it.
It's just gonna be, like I said, we'll have to get approaches built if we want to be open, because construction won't be till next spring,
What is your scheduled open date?
November 1st.
November 1st. Is there any objections by commissioners to including that in the bid documents?
No, that's a good answer to that detail.
Probably pretty minor, but just so we know what's happening with it.
Well, they'll have the right equipment to do it on
Oh, yeah.
site.
I mean,
so,
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you know, we may as well all face this with the date that we are today. We've got a challenge just getting water and sewer done. We're going to go after that as hard as we can, but there certainly isn't going to be any street work done this fall.
no, we understand that. That's why we wanted temporary hookups, so we could at least open the doors. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment?
Commissioners, Glenn Bronco. This is a question for Craig. What about the underground utility easements? Is that going to be a hindrance?
Are you referring to the permanent easements to
Correct.
be acquired? Well, right now, we have a task order with KLJ to provide those right-of-way acquisition services to the city. Depending on how the commission proceeds this evening, moving forward or not moving forward with the Special Improvement District, our plan is to go out and start making offers for that right-of-way or utility easements. It's actually permanent right-of-way that we're hoping to acquire tomorrow. So whether or not that could be a hindrance, right-of-way acquisition can always be a hindrance to a project schedule. It's one of those things that are sometimes outside of the city's control.
So then that brings us to the next point, then that can push back the August bid letting. If you do not acquire it,
I wouldn't recommend bidding the project without the right-of-way.
so then it messes up that November 1 to get services.
It could, and that's why we're entertaining conversations with you about a temporary connection.
That was my next thing, is then in the event that that happens, you'll entertain the option of having temporary, as we discussed?
I think we would. I don't know about how we discussed it exactly. As we talked, we would prefer that to be on a private easement outside of the right-of-way.
Just so that we do have an option B in the event that there is a hiccup and right-of-way isn't acquired, the bid letting gets pushed back, and the November completion for the water and sewer wouldn't happen, that we still could explore that option as we visited for the temporary.
I think we've always been open to the idea that, one, it would be a private easement, and two, it would be a temporary connection. So,
Right. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Tews with Tews Construction and representing the commercial land under Fred Tews. If I'm understanding Matt correctly, the dollar amounts listed on here for the assessments, that's not correct? Because we're listed at 366,000.
The assessment amounts that are in the engineer's report are the engineer's anticipated assessments if the property, or excuse me, if the project comes in at the anticipated bid amount. And I think we allocated those amounts based on linear foot. The actual amounts that would be assessed against the property would depend upon receipt of the actual bids, and then what the Special Assessment Commission would determine to be the benefit to each individual property. I think those anticipated assessments are probably a good idea of what we would expect, but they are not written in stone.
Okay. And if I'm understanding Mr. Kubis correctly, you still have to come and ask for right-of-way from us to take that additional 17 feet?
the 17 feet on the property you're representing tonight is currently a road easement. I think there's 33 feet that was dedicated when the property was platted, and the 17 feet we would like to acquire as permanent road easement, similar to all the other street easement that we have in town, yes.
Okay. So you still have to acquire it?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I can clarify for a moment, there are no utilities that are going in that 17-foot right or road easement that Mr. Tews is referring to. That is something that was dedicated to the city as a road easement in years past. We would like, as a matter of course, that all city roads are within city-owned right-of-way. However, it is a road easement, and I believe we could still construct the road within that easement as it has been dedicated. So I think we would like to acquire the right-of-way from the Tews property. I don't believe that is going to be a requirement, and we could still construct the project even if we were not able to acquire that right-of-way.
Thank you, Mr. Coley.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tooze. Anybody else wish to comment?
Well, I think it's just important to note that city staff, engineering, city commissioners, I know we've all met on this issue, and we've all tried to come up with something that is going to help the landowners get the services that they need, meet the deadlines that you're wanting to meet. And when we first started looking at this project, it was flipped absolutely the opposite way. The city was going to, and had set aside our budget, about $2 million of the $7.5 million for the project, and the other $5.5 million was going to be special assessed to the benefiting properties. And so certainly, as we flipped it absolutely the opposite way, you can't say that we haven't been trying to make this project feasible for everyone. There's costs incurred not only by the taxpayers, but there's benefits to it too. And so I just want that noted, that we have certainly tried every way possible to make this as feasible for everyone involved.
Just one quick comment when you talk about feasibility. My share of this will be $421,000 to hook up water and sewer to this. So I gotta look at my business plan and look at it and say, is $421,000 feasible for just water and sewer? That's a great question. And that's something that the commissioners have to look at and say, hey, you know, how much benefit am I gonna get out of it and how much am I at? If you take down the road and you take 40th Street, and we understand we went through that whole district and other people voted it out, I can't control other people and how they do things. But my special assessments basically doubled from that district to this water district now. And I never voted it out. I never did anything wrong. I worked with the city, and now my specials are doubled. Pretty tough pill to swallow.
Mr. Kubas, how long is this street? I mean, how many feet are we dealing with?
It's approximately a half mile.
It's a half mile. It's, the engineer's estimate is between $7 million and $7.5 million. It's going to be, without doubt, the most expensive half mile of street I think our city's ever built. And a lot of it has to do with, as I understand it, just the terrain. It's such a low area. It's going to be a benefit to those who live in the area. Many of the rest of our citizens will only occasionally use that street, and some likely never. And the city is willing to spend around $6 million for that half mile. I think those that live there for the $1.5 million, given the conditions, the physical conditions that exist there, are getting a pretty good deal. We need to move on this quickly. I'm concerned that if you continue to delay, it'll get more expensive. I mean, we have an overabundance of projects. We could take this $6 million and apply it in many other ways. But we think that this is a reasonable thing to do and a right thing to do, but it's a very expensive thing to do. If there's no one else that wishes to speak, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed and invite my fellow commissioners to make their final comments regarding this issue. Mr. Jackson?
You know, the numbers that keep coming to my head are the 7 million and the 1.5 million. We're going to special assess the water and sewer. We're specialing not one dime of the street and of a very significant stormwater solution, which I know all the adjacent property owners are well aware of up there. My concern is fairness. I think it's easier to get consensus on fairness in principle than it is fairness in dollar amounts. I have a hunch that we probably have consensus on the principle that we're being fair here. We probably will never get consensus on what dollar amount we're spreading to what property. We'll probably never get that. But I think that this is happening in a fair way. We really do need to move. Should have moved a long time ago, but we had to work our way through this thing with property owners and financing and engineers and everything else. So I'm personally ready to move forward.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment? Mr. Colling, is this resolution 42-2014?
That's correct, Mr. President.
Mr. President, if I could have a moment.
Absolutely.
I'm the new guy on this. I look at these numbers, and I know that the past commission went ahead with the annexation and the road. I know what Commissioner Jackson's saying about fairness, but I look at some of the business owners in that area and what they're actually going to get out of it, and for me, the numbers just don't add up. So I don't have a warm and fuzzy on it. I guess, as you said, Mr. Colling, the Special Assessment Commission will assess after the bids come in and make a recommendation.
They will make a recommendation to this commission once bids come in and the actual construction costs are known.
Because I've been up and down that road, and I know who's going to get the most benefit. There's going to be certain businesses that are going to get the most benefit, and that's my problem looking at it. Even though we're going to spread out, like you said, fairness, dollar amounts, stuff like that, I look at who's going to get it, and I agree, for the public safety, we need it. The sewer, the water lines, all that. And I can see where, as stated, it is a hard pill for some of the business owners. I guess tonight I just don't feel good about it, but I want to see what the Special Assessment Committee is going to come up with. So I would like to, I can't believe the project's going to be that much. 7.5. Like you said, it's probably going to be the most expensive, Mr. President, you said, half-mile road in the state.
Well, I don't know about the state. I said Dickinson.
Okay.
Williston,
Okay.
Watford City's
They might-
probably got
they
some
might have
projects that
something.
rival ours. Well, I think all of us in the room hope that the engineer's estimate is overly cautious and that the bids will come in better than that. But having said that, again, we know it is a very difficult site, and but hopefully we can move forward and get a chance to see what those bids look like. Other comments by commissioners? Not, is there a motion regarding this resolution?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
We have the motion and the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Mr. President,
Oh, go ahead.
I know we're just talking about the special assessment tonight, but Mr. Barranco did bring up the temporary line plus the easement, and I'd just like to make sure that discussion is not stopped with them.
Yeah, I think what I heard our staff say is that, if things don't work out here, they're willing to work with them there, and I think the commission is supportive of that. We want to see the project open on time. And,
I didn't want to make that part of the motion, but with the understanding that we
well, I think that's two separate items, you know, the
Exactly.
approval of the resolution is one thing. If you want to follow up with another motion, you're certainly entitled to do that. Other discussion? Okay, so then we'll go ahead and vote on the motion to approve Resolution 42-2014. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Nay.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Mr. Steiner, if you do have a motion in mind,
Do we need a motion for the right-of-way and the, or the temporary?
Commissioner Steiner, I think Mr. Kubus and other city staff, myself included, will continue to have those discussions with Mr. Fitterer and his group. I think, as Mr. Kubus stated, city staff are open to allowing a temporary connection if that becomes necessary. And we'll continue to work with them on that as our timelines for this project sort of formalize.
and, you know, if Mr. Fitterer and his group encounter what they consider roadblocks by city staff, they certainly can contact any commissioner and say, I need your help.
And that's why I don't want to make a motion on this for that part of it. I don't want to leave the city in this type of situation.
So, they realize they have a significant investment. They're under construction. The city granted them a building permit. So, but I think the city also is looking for the best long-term solution to this issue. You know, we're not going to build 40th Street and not put the infrastructure underneath it. It doesn't seem really to be a very good option to do nothing. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive project, or at least it's estimated to be expensive. So. Okay, well then we're going to move along again. We're going to go back to Mr. Kessel's reports and let you pick up where you left off.
Thank you, President Johnson and Commission. The next item that I'd like to discuss with you is entitled Alternates to Various Boards. This is a concept that we haven't completely flushed out. We wanted to get your thoughts about it. We've ran into some issues lately with regards to obtaining a quorum on some of our commissions. For instance, the Board of Adjustment, although they had a legal quorum of 3 people, in order to conduct the item on the agenda, they needed 4 because it involved an appeal of Community Development Director Court Hahn's decision. So they still couldn't maintain or conduct the meeting itself. We've also have a member of another board who, after appointment, has decided to winter outside of the state. And so it thereby means that they're not available for a significant portion of the year. That appointment will continue for at least another 18 months. So in order to try and come up with an idea of how to deal with these situations, one of the concepts was the appointment of an alternate to various boards. The alternate would not, they would have the ability to vote in the absence of a member. So in other words, if you had a 5-member board, you'd have 5 members and 1 alternate. When one of those board members cannot make it, the alternate steps in and acts as a board member themselves. They do not count as a quorum unless they are acting on behalf of a board member. The thought process is if in the absence, we could still hold these meetings if the alternate was able to attend. Since it's happened to us on a couple different occasions rather recently, this is one of the concepts that came up at a discussion of our executive team, and we wanted to find out what the commission thought of this type of a solution to what could become a bigger problem.
Any reaction by the commission?
Would the alternates be expected to attend all the regular meetings just as if they're a full and active voting member?
We would hope that they would do that, because in order to stay informed and with the items that they're going to have to be voting on, we would hope that they would receive all of the information just like a regular board member. Their attendance would not be required at a meeting unless one of the members would be absent themselves. So to answer your question, I guess it's no, but we hope that yes.
Because that would be my only concern, is someone coming in uninformed but expected to pitch hit and make the decision. There's nothing you can do with what makes a quorum.
I guess that's a question for Attorney Coling.
Generally, the way it works is the quorum is 50% of the board, or 50% of those members now serving. There are particular parts of our ordinances, such as Board of Adjustment, that require a specific number of members in order to act on an appeal of a decision. We may be able to adjust that somewhat with some of our ordinances to adjust quorums or the number of members that serve on a commission. I think we have some concern about that, that if you reduce the quorum, then potentially two members may get together and they can go out for coffee and make a decision on something.
Sure.
So we want to when we have large boards, have a majority of those members be able to act on matters and not have a minority of the board perhaps do something that the majority of the board would not like.
Okay.
Other comments?
Mr. President, if I can just add, just some past history with respect to, let's say, the Board of Adjustment. Whenever we haven't had a quorum, we were notified either a day or two beforehand. My suggestion would be similar to what City Administrator Kessel would say, that they would get the pack of materials, they would be notified of the meeting dates, and then if we did not have that, we'd have the ability to call that person in. I think that would mitigate the majority of the problems that we've had, is that because the board members are responsible. It's rare that somebody does not show up at a meeting. They will notify staff at least a day or two beforehand, if not prior to that, and that would be hopefully sufficient time for that alternate member to be able to make the fair accommodations to attend.
Do you worry that an alternate member like this might promote truancy?
Are you hoping now? I guess I hadn't thought of that, Commissioner Jackson, but that could be a unintended consequence.
Give it a try.
We can certainly bring an ordinance draft in front of you and let you look it over.
Continuity, I think, is desirable. And with a larger board, that probably isn't in jeopardy. But with a smaller board, it might be.
Well, and this would also be a cue to succession planning in a bigger scheme. The alternate would obviously be the first one we would go to for a permanent appointment, and then replace the alternate.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put together a draft ordinance for you for your review at an incoming meeting. The next item that I have is the second quarter report on our safety program. Excuse me. We've had, this would be ending in June 30th of 2014. We had 17 incidences in the second quarter, bringing the mid-year total to 38. That compares to a mid-year total of 32 in 13 and 35 in 2012. In 2011, we had a mid-year total of 36, and then 27 in 2010. So this is the highest mid-year total that we've had since 2010 at a minimum. The most common injuries that we're seeing are strains and sprains, and 12 of these 17 reports in the second quarter required medical attention of some variety. These are all concerns for us. I've expressed these concerns to you in the past. In this budget process, I believe we'll be asking for a safety and training coordinator to try and address this on a more regular and consistent basis. You heard the report from Ms. Nominuk earlier today. In our hiring environment, it is difficult to obtain staff, and we certainly want to make sure that they're operating as safely as possible to prevent any kind of injuries. So that is the safety report for the second quarter. I also just briefly wanted to say that I attended the North Dakota League of Cities first legislative meeting for this upcoming session. It was held on July 17th. We went over several different bill drafts that will be debated as the legislature occurs. I've had regular meetings with members of District 36, 37, 1, 2, and 5 to discuss a multitude of issues, primarily funding with regard to Western North Dakota and oil country. So the legislative process is upon us. It has been for several weeks, and I'll start to bring regular updates to you as we get closer and closer. And with that, I think Attorney Colling has another report for you.
Mr. President, Commissioners, the report I have to give to you is with respect to a notice of request to modify pipeline that we have received from BNSF Railroad. As you know, the railroad owns about a 200-foot wide corridor for its main line running through Dickinson. There are a substantial number of city pipelines that go across that railroad right-of-way. The railroad, historically, for as long as the railroad has existed, it doesn't grant easements for municipal pipelines that cross its right-of-way. It grants licenses. So we have those pipelines, and that we transverse the railroad right-of-way more or less at the permission or the sufferance of the railroad. And part of the license is that if the railroad requests the city to move a pipeline, then it is our expense to move the pipeline. We've been notified by the railroad that they are anticipating the possibility of adding additional tracks across the right-of-way. Right now, there's one track that goes across the right-of-way, and I think from the notification we received, they may be looking at moving to 2 or 3 parallel tracks across that right-of-way. Some of these licenses that the city has for its pipelines go back 80 years or more. The last one we looked at earlier, or last week, I guess it was a license that was granted by the railroad, I think 1934. So these are longstanding pipelines that the city has maintained. My recollection now, I think, is that there are 14 or more that the city has transversing the right-of-way, and the railroad is requesting that we move those. We don't know the cost of it. We are in contact with BNSF personnel to figure out what the cost of it might be and what actions we might have to take in order to comply with the license regulations. We anticipate bringing some more information to you on the near future on this. I should say, too, the railroad has its own contractor that moves the pipeline, and we are required under the terms of the license that the railroad gives to use that contractor to move the pipeline, and they give us a price, and we pay it. So there is not a whole lot of negotiating room that we have on this, but we are in contact with the railroad and trying to work with them in order to mitigate any cost to the city. Mr. Kubas has been working on this as well, and I'd invite any comments from him.
Mr. President, Commission, last week we did get in touch with their contractor at Cinnabar Southwest. Like Mr. Colling said, they're looking at adding more track within their right-of-way. How that will affect our existing in-place pipelines, we don't know yet. We did go out and locate our facilities with our engineering staff last week, or we started those locates. It will affect immediately one license that was recently granted to us for both of our pipelines that'll cross the railroad right-of-way this year. Projects are under construction but haven't crossed the railroad right-of-way yet, and that's the west lift station, the force main that will go under the railroad in the vicinity of Dickinson Ready Mix, and the 24-inch west water main project. Right now, I don't think we have any significant changes due to this request, but we are going to have to extend casing on both of those projects, probably from right-of-way line to right-of-way line. Right now, the portion that needed to be encased in steel was really dictated by the railroad and their policies on how far you have to do that from the track. And with their proposed improvements that they're planning, they asked that we extend that steel casing from right-of-way limit to right-of-way limit. So don't have a cost on that yet, but our consultants are working forward on that upcoming change order.
So is the letter to remove them or encase them?
The letter is actually called a notice of request to modify a pipeline. And right now, I don't think they have the full extent of what that modification would be. We got a dozen or 15 separate requests with each individual license attached to this, essentially the same form letter. But I think it's just part of their process. They put us on notice that they're going to be doing work, and if we need to modify that pipeline that's granted through their license, that we'll have to do that. Time frame they didn't really have yet, but they are planning on adding their tracks next year.
Be good to talk to the other cities on the main line, huh?
Well, I'm happy to see Senator Hoven's representative sitting in the audience. I know Senator Hoven is close to Burlington Northern Santa Fe, or by that I mean he knows their chairman quite well, and if we need some political help in convincing the railroad to be reasonable with us, we could probably get some help there. I hope.
Well, I don't think we've gotten an unreasonable request yet.
No,
so.
you're just alerting us. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that one?
Nothing on that matter.
Okay. Mr. Kessel, I want to go back to the legislative items. I know you alerted me maybe a week and a half ago to what appears to be emerging draft legislation regarding property tax reform and where there could be some actual limits on mill levies. And I did look at a document that probably had 20, 25 years of city mill levy history. And my concern was that, you know, when we got past the 1982 oil bust, there in the 80s and maybe into the early 90s, our mill levy as a city was quite high, and it appeared to me it would exceed the numbers, the limits that some of the concepts that were being proposed. I mean, we can have quite a swing in these mill levies depending upon what happens with property values. And in the 80s, when we literally had a collapse in property values, didn't necessarily mean we were collecting any more in property taxes in total, but our mill levies became quite high.
If you like, I can walk through. What they're proposing is a consolidation of mills. And so every city would be granted 80 mills for the general operation of that city, but could expand that to 25 with voter approval. All cities would be grandfathered up to 105 until, I think, with a 10-year anniversary. So if you exceed 105 today, you could do that for 10 additional years, and then you'd have to go to the vote of the people to get anything over 80. It would exclude home rule cities,
Well, my point is, we're at like 55 mills today,
Mhm.
and it's been trending down. But we wouldn't take much of a loss in property values, and you would be at 80 mills very easily. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't take that much of a swing.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, it appeared to me that's fairly dangerous.
They didn't limit special improvement districts in terms of deficiency funds. So if it was special assessment debt that pushed you over, we could continue to levy unlimited for that specific debt.
For debt.
Yep.
Is that just general obligation debt? What if,
No, it had to be special improvement debt. So special assessment districts, well, yeah, I guess in the NGO debt, yes. Yeah.
well, 80 mills may sound like a lot today when we're at 55, but it wasn't that many years ago we were greater than 80. And, these communities that are located in the Bakken, they're going to have terrific swings in property values. We've had terrific swings on the upside. I think you can make a good argument, a strong argument, that our real estate values are in bubble territory, and bubbles tend to burst rather than slowly recede. And so we could have quite a swing in property values where right now our city assessor is struggling to keep up with the rising values. We could end a period of time where it's a struggle to keep up with the declining values.
And the cities with higher property values tend to be the ones with the lower mills because of that relationship. So the city of Fargo traditionally has been the community that has the lowest mills in the state. Recently, that's not been true because of the exact scenario that you're discussing, the high property value increases.
I just get very concerned when one size is going to fit all, because what is happening in the Bakken is so different from what's happening in the rest of the state. I'm very concerned about that. That's some feedback.
I appreciate that, because that's exactly the type of feedback that they need. And this was meant to do exactly that, to gather feedback from all communities that attended and all communities in North Dakota. So,
I mean, you can almost take the Bakken area and say, here's one set of rules, and if you're non-Bakken, here's another, because the environment is so different.
I will certainly share those comments.
Anything else that you have on your reports? Anybody else have comments for the city administrator? All right, we'll move to tab 5, public safety, and we'll hear the fire department quarterly report.
Mayor Johnson, Commissioners, tonight we'll present to you the report of activities of the City Fire Department for the second quarter of 2014. Second quarter incident response, as you see there. Other crew callouts, 16. Full-time response, 59. It's way up there. And that's, again, I've told you that in previous reports, that we were trying to take some of the burden off of our volunteers, and it shows that we were successful in doing that. The only reason we're able to do that is because of the additional full-time staff that you allowed us to hire. Officer in charge calls, 30 compared to 35 and 13, 29 in 2012. Kind of staying status quo there. General alarm responses going up steadily, and that's everybody and everything, of course. Structure fires, we've had a couple of bad ones, as you're aware of, and a couple of others besides that already this year. Night duty responses, 9:30 at night to 6:30 in the morning. We're seeing a huge increase in activity for call-outs in that area. Things are really starting to happen during that time frame in our city nowadays. Back in prior to 2011, actually, well, actually prior to 2013, Our response, our ability to respond on a night duty response was just 2 people, 2 volunteers usually. Now, we've been able to hire some additional full-time firefighters, and by the end of this year, we'll have 1 firefighter on duty around the clock, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. That doesn't sound like much, but that enables that 2-person night duty response to now become a 3-person response. Our goal is to be able to put a 4-person response out anytime we get a call from any location we're going to man. We understand that that's not going to happen right away, but this one individual that's on duty full-time, in addition to those volunteers, that is huge for that night duty response. That's a tremendous asset that's available to us. And we hope that we can present the information to you to continue to grow that type of response. Special call, that could be hazardous material, medical assist, 4 in the second quarter. 2014 second quarter totals, 135 total responses compared to the 111 in 2013, same time frame, same 108 in 2012. 22% increase over 2013, 25% increase over 2012. And just think, 135 in the second quarter, 248 year to date so far. In 2009, our total responses for the entire year was 216. Second quarter incident response to fireworks. Some of that, of course, ran over into the third quarter. But I just wanted you to know that we did have 4 actual call-outs related to fireworks. We had a fire in a garbage can in the Gross Softball Complex. That was fireworks. Pride Park grass fire. Era Drive, fire under a trailer. Fireworks got away from somebody. We're not quite sure if it was intentionally shooting at the other trailer or if it was accidental. We're going with accidental at this point in time. But it did start a fire under the trailer. And on Custer Street, embers from a firework, an aerial shell, fell onto the roof of a house. The homeowner got up on a ladder and actually stomped it out by the time we got there, but we did respond and we did make sure everything was all right. Fire prevention and public education activities in the second quarter. We had 600 total activities broken down into routine inspections, follow-up inspections, construction, childcare, miscellaneous, public education, and plan reviews, the categories that you've seen, in the past. And again, the plan reviews, really, it takes a couple of our people off the street, as it does in the code enforcement department also. And things are really starting to ramp up for them, really starting to get busy. A lot of questions being asked, a lot of phone calls, a lot of people coming through the door. Quarterly fire prevention activities, our staff and our volunteers doing a lot of things within the city. Dickinson High School, they went to Mrs. Mormon's class April 4th. There was a preschool tour of the department in April, a fire extinguisher demonstration for a company called Clean Harbor, 20 students, April 21st. First graders toured the fire department from Richardson Taylor in May. Fire extinguisher demonstration for the St. Luke staff in May. Safety City, we took part in that. 50 students involved in that in June. Kids Fit program, 40 students, again in June. Babysitting clinics, 19 students in June. We also made sure that we put out public service announcements in 2 areas of great concern, fireworks and portable outdoor fireplaces. That portable outdoor fireplace issue always keeps us busy over the summer months, people doing it wrong, quite frankly. We worked with Channel 18 and Consolidated and press releases. We also had an autism camp do a tour of the department in June, and another fire extinguishing demo for St. Luke staff. Quarterly fire department activities involving all the volunteers. Regular training in April was master stream, standpipes, and apparatus operations. May, auto extrication recertification took place, along with auto extrication certification for those people that did not have that training yet. Regional response hazmat exercise, we took some of our equipment and some of our people and we went to Bismarck for a functional exercise. That was covered by a grant. Regular training in May was our car fire prop, which is a live fire prop. We sent one of our individuals, fire engineer Hillary Hartman, attended the Hazardous Materials Conference in Baltimore, Maryland, May 29th through June 1st. It's 32 hours of training provided. That was covered by a grant from State Homeland Security. Regular training in June was our self-contained breathing apparatus maze and search procedures. April 5th, we had people present for the Trinity Band Aid event. Of course, we coordinated or helped coordinate the spring cleanup, May 3rd through May 10th, which we believe was a success, and you've heard reports on that before. And then June 28th, as part of the Rough Rider Days, we again helped host the breakfast at the Sunset Senior Citizen Center. Very successful this year. After expenses, our department voted unanimously to return all proceeds to the senior citizens, and it was my pleasure to bring them a check for a little over $1,500 this year. And we took part in the Rough Rider Days Parade. We were able to send two of our people, our fire engineer Hillary Hartman and one of our volunteer lieutenants, Sean Schumacher, to Amlin, Ohio to do a pre-construction meeting on the truck that we're having built for us. Like I said, it's a demo, it's on the line, that's what it's going to look like. We were able, through their work at the factory and going through the lists and all the checks and everything, we were able to upgrade the engine and made some minor changes, positive changes to the truck, and ended up coming in with a $79 credit, so it didn't cost you any money. While there, they saw a lighting package for the ladder, for the aerial ladder, as an LED lighting package. And they decided that that would be a great addition to the truck for safety reasons. The entire length of the ladder is illuminated. It's a $6,000 add-on, and it's a $6,000 add-on that I don't have to ask you for, Commissioners, because through the fundraising efforts of the volunteer fire department, our volunteer firefighters paid for that add-on. That's their investment in that truck. Now, that may pale somewhat in comparison to the total dollar value of that truck, but nonetheless, I think it's a tremendous and amazing effort on their part to show their involvement in this community and in the equipment purchases. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief Seebuck. Are there any comments or questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll move down to engineering, and engineering specialist Marshik will take us through 3 task order requests.
Good evening, President Johnson, Commissioners. The first item is a task order for a 500,000 gallon water storage facility, which would be located out at the new Public Works building. This task order is with KLJ for engineering services, which would include things like the design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction administration. The estimate for this would be $560,000, $560,500, and the city staff recommends approval.
Now, that's the engineering cost. That's not the cost of the tank, right?
Correct. That's
Yep.
for design and any costs attributed with getting it put down on paper, so to speak.
Okay. You've heard her introduction. Are there any questions or comments? Is there a motion regarding the task order? Think you can make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. So we have the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll abstain from all 3 of these votes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Decker? Mr. Jackson abstains. Chair will vote aye, so the motion carries.
The next item is a task order entered in with KLJ for the same type of services, design, construction administration, right-of-way acquisition for a booster station that would help us with Pressure Zone 2. And it also includes about 7,000 lineal feet of 12-inch water main. And those services are estimated to be $468,700. And the city staff recommends approval on that item.
Okay, again, you've heard the introduction and the recommendation. Any comments or questions?
This would be the project that would take care of the pressure issues in that industrial area?
Correct.
Southeast corner?
Correct. That KLD subdivision
Mhm.
east of 6th.
I'm assuming all three of these projects are on our current capital priority list.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, okay. Other questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve.
We have the motion and the second to approve. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson abstains. Chair votes aye, so the motion carries.
The third item is another booster station, the similar type of agreement with KLJ, similar services, just a different location. This location would be north of our proposed public safety center off of State Avenue. And the services are estimated at $197,200. The city staff recommends approval for that item.
Again, you've heard the introduction and recommendation. Do you have any comments or questions?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Decker?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson abstains. Chair votes aye, so the motion carries.
Thank you.
Then we go to reports. Mr. Kubas is going to give us his reports.
Well, today, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to give you some project updates. We've brought back the Google map, so if everyone wants to get a comfortable chair. And I hope our mouse works from here, but what I'll do, if you remember the last time we'd went through the map, there was actually more projects on here. What I'm going to focus on is some of the construction that's ongoing. We have a lot of, especially development projects that are in design right now, working through development agreements, and the same could be said with our capital improvement projects. We have several projects that are being designed right now, working through right-of-way negotiations, but aren't under construction yet. So this map would really be limited to the projects that we have under construction right now. I'll start with some of the subdivisions. People have probably seen work going on behind the Hampton Inn. This is the Lamont Second Edition, and right now where you see work happening is mainly on Second Avenue East, Second Avenue West on the west side of this subdivision, and they'll also be constructing the extension of Sims Street north of 14th. So right now, the contractors out there, I don't have a completion date on these as they're privately funded projects right now, but that work that you see going on back there is for the Lamont Second Subdivision. I've also seen some grading, or some of you may have seen grading going on at the Buffalo Bend subdivision. This is on 10th Avenue East, right here. Right now, we're still finalizing the engineering plans with that developer. They just moved some fill out into the area right now, and just last week stripped some topsoil. Nope, I had one highlighted here. We have been working through the Rolling Hills subdivision south along State Avenue. They haven't started construction yet, but we are working with that developer finalizing some engineering plans. Project that many people have seen under construction for some time now, actually started last year, moving dirt, is our Dickinson Hills subdivision just west of the West Business Loop. My understanding is that the grading on that project is just about complete, probably will wrap up this week. I don't have an estimated plan for utility installation, a time frame for that. We do have approved civil plans for the project, but the grading is just about complete on that one. Everyone's familiar with the hospital. I think they're still on schedule to complete their building and open this year yet. The grading's complete on that. We do have a city project that's going through this development here, would be the reconstruction of Empire Road. I'll touch on that in just a little bit. The Westridge Second Edition, my boundaries might be off a little bit here. While this one isn't under construction, again, I believe they'll begin moving dirt this week on the Westridge Second Edition. Up north, we have what will be referred to as the Cook Meadows Fifth Edition. Again, they're not grading this entire limit. Their work is limited to this area right here. They're installing some water and sewer. I think they plan on installing some streets later this year. And this will be, I believe it's going to be called the Cook Meadows Fifth. Some of that work are Cook Meadow Hills Sixth. Some of that work falls in both of these subdivisions, but most of it's limited to the area closer to State Avenue, not over by 30th. The Prairie Creek subdivision started some of their grading work 2 weeks ago now. This project will be mainly residential with some commercial along State Avenue and 21st Street. Again, they began grading last week. Their plan is to have all their utilities installed this year and approximately pave half of the streets this year in hopes of getting some building permits for some of their commercial projects within that development. And then finally, it's a city capital improvement project, but it's also a subdivision that we've been working on internally is our public safety center, and we had the groundbreaking for that 2 weeks ago. So a lot of these projects on the private side have really kicked off in earnest in the last month or so. We hope that they'll be able to get their civil work done this year, at least in part to start some of the site development, where we can see some of the more fun things that come out of land development when we get some of the commercial and retail businesses there. I know Apex had updated us on some of the projects that they had nearing completion. This one, Lift Station 14, is a project that's nearly finished in design. No construction there yet, but this is on 10th Avenue East and 21st Street. A lift station that'll be upgraded with an associated force main. Hope to start some work on that, but don't anticipate completion or utilization of it until 2015. Lift Station 12, back on the other side of town. And Lift Station 12 doesn't zoom in. Lift Station 12 is actually down here on 15th Street, west of the mall. But we have some gravity main that will feed into the lift station, and then that lift station will force all the influent out to the West Business Loop. So it's a pretty big project. That project's bid under construction right now has been for a month or more. Again, that's a 2015 completion date. The West Gravity Sewer, you saw a little bit of construction on that? Okay, so that will be a 2014 completion date. I think they did the boring under the West Business Loop and then moved on to some other work, but anticipate to see a lot of construction coming up here on the West Business Loop later this year. I guess we'd gotten an update on the West Lift Station, but again, just for a visual, again, another very large project in scope. It starts here at the intersection of Highway 10 and the Business Loop, the West Business Loop, then extends through the south portion of town. And another project that Apex had updated us on is the Influent Pump Station, which picks up where the West Force Main, the West Pump Station's force main, leaves off and takes it all the way over to our water reclamation facility. So those are the sewer projects under construction. Administrator Kessel had talked about some of our water projects that we have under construction right now, and I can touch on a few of those as well. just to give you a visual again, we have the west side, maybe we won't. The west side water tank doesn't want to take me over there for some reason, but it's under construction. We had that pre-construction meeting about 6 weeks ago. The foundation is complete. That's going to go up in, I can grab a pointer here. It'll go up in the Pinecrest subdivision, right in that area. They have the foundation in already. It's kind of one of those projects that's out of sight, out of mind a little bit, but it is well underway. They're on schedule for, again, another completion date in 2015. Oops. Now it took me in there, so. That's where our new water tower will be. And the west side dedicated water main that's going to feed that tank is the blue line that you see coming from Broadway and all the way up the West Business Loop up to that tank. And the final project, and really the critical one for all of this to function, is right down here where my cursor is the finished water pump station. And it's got, I believe it's an August of 2015 completion date. All of these other projects, they might get done earlier, but we really need that finished water pump station to feed our new system and really alleviate all of the issues that we've encountered the last week. I think that is most of the construction that we have going on. We do have a couple small, I guess relatively small, street projects. 10th Avenue West on the north side of town is under construction. I anticipate that project to wrap up in the next month or so. They just began pouring curb and gutter, and they'll have asphalt paving to finish that project up. And then the Empire Road project that I'd mentioned earlier through the hospital site, that project is wrapping up the utility portion of it. And then we have a separate contract for the streets, which is, I think, just starting right now with some sidewalk and trail work. So. Oh, well, thank you. The 24-inch east, I can click on it here. The water east side dedicated. Right. Well, thank you, Aaron. The 24-inch east is just getting started, I believe, this week. They'd hoped to get off and running last week, but they got some of their submittals squared away. This project we anticipate to be complete again in 2015. It'll need that finished water pump station to really feed this line. But this will affect a lot of services as it's going through. This isn't a dedicated main, so it will tie into the businesses and residences along Broadway. And that project, I think, should be getting started in earnest here this week or next. So. If there's any questions that you'd have on any of these projects or any other construction you see going around town, I'd be happy to answer.
Craig, I guess I have one. The interim bypass when is the finish date on that?
They're well along. I don't have, that's a DOT project. I don't have that exact completion date. But as I drove through it, it looked to me, within a month or 6 weeks, I think that would be open to traffic. And we'll probably touch on that a little bit more as we have some discussion on our truck bypass route through town.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Kubas?
Thank you.
Okay. Are you going to be commenting on the ETZ boundaries, or is that Ms. Marshak?
I'll be making most of
You'll
those
do
comments.
those, okay. Is that up here too?
Yeah. Thank you, President Johnson. I will give, Ms. Marshak is the one who put the map together, so she'll be able to answer all of the finer details. I just wanted to provide a general overview. As you know, as a commission, when you extend the city limits of the city of Dickinson, the ETZ does not change. You have to make an affirmative motion to change that ETZ boundary that would reflect the change in the city limits. It's a little bit hard to see, but this red line here is indicative of our existing city limits. And because of the annexations that we've completed over the course of the last 18 months or so, it does grant us additional territory if we so choose. This green line here is the extension beyond the red that we could extend our boundaries from. And I apologize, this is a little hard to see. But essentially there's a little, here we go. Thank you very much. So you can see there's an extension on the northwest side of town. It also does go to the south side and extends down here. And then on, thank you. So this is 10th, or Old Highway 10 right here. This would be the interstate corridor, just to get you acclimated to what we're talking about. And then the other primary piece that we could bring into our extraterritorial zoning is located on the northeast side of town. And you can see the red is again the existing. This would be the extension of what we could bring in. And this red line is the existing ETZ. So you can see that our city limits are actually touching our existing ETZ in this location. And so that we could move those out to this green line. When we did this several years ago, we decided to not bring in this development. We could bring that in if we so chose. Certainly our ETZ authority does extend to a line that would connect right here. It would separate those two, or separate that development into two pieces. But that may or may not be a bad thing. That also occurs on the south side of town, where we exhibited the same behavior of we could bring that line straight across. Because that development was there the last time we extended, we chose to leave that out. And the way the state law reads is we can adopt quarter sections. So that's why you see them in these jagged, almost sawtooth boundaries all around the edges of our community. So tonight, this is in a format that we could actually adopt it if you so chose. It was intended to be a report and ask you about these couple questions, this south side piece, then that north side piece, this one up here, and then just so you could visually see the extension of that extraterritorial boundary. Also remember that the west side Dickinson plan, or the West Dickinson plan, also encompasses a great deal of property along the interstate corridor and the old 10 corridor, moving to the west and extending about a half a mile beyond what will be the exit 56 exchange. Now, we have not completed some annexations that Engineer Kubis talked about, where there's some construction going on. That is up in this area where Mr. Cook and the Cook 5 and Cook 6 are going on. Once those are annexed, assuming that that takes place, we could further extend this ETZ boundary. So that's kind of the boundaries as they exist today and what we could take. And we'd like to open the floor for comments from city commissioners with regard to moving forward with this extension. I am also slated to present similar material to the county commission at their first meeting in August.
Any feedback for Mr. Kessel?
Mr. President, I think the reason that the concept of the ETZ exists in state law is so that communities can assert zoning influence over areas that are likely to become part of the city in the future. I think there's no question that looking west, northwest, in that quadrant, this makes sense to do this. I'd like to hear what Mr. Catan might think, but in the northeast corner, we probably, in the northeast quadrant, we probably could be more selective. I'm not sure we have to go out the full 2 miles. And maybe it needs a little more look to be more surgical with that. On the west side, I think we should do that and do it immediately.
Commissioner Jackson, I can answer your question. I would agree going to the west as we're in the process of working with our West Dickinson area plan. Having control of those areas would be very good, advantageous for us as part of the implementation of the plan. Going to the east, we're going to take a significant portion of land going to the west in addition to what we already have. I do not see my personal feel due to topography. You have Signal Mountain or Signal Hill that we would grow further to the east, at least in anywhere in the near future. So I would say that we don't have to go all that way. However, that's something that we could look at if you want us to trim that. There isn't a problem of us necessarily going all that direction to the east. There's very little development. It's mainly all farms. The only question would be, do we want to have jurisdiction over it? I don't think we've had, on the county side, too much development proposals with respect going further to the east, but definitely to the west. But when you factor in the 6,800 acres that we're looking at going to the west, plus our existing 12,000 acres that we have in the city, then we're looking at pretty sizable land. We would have significant land for as we've anticipated in our comprehensive plan for the next 20 years. So.
Mr. Catan, why would we not include that northern boundary in this ETZ?
The one that jogs down?
Yep.
Just for clarity, simplicity. It's difficult if you bisect a subdivision. Determining where that's at, it's confusing for people that their neighbor is and they are not. So we've kind of chose not to just for that purpose, simplicity and for clarity. I would recommend that we would continue with that policy myself. I know that subdivision, I think it's Greenvale subdivision, has a commercial component towards 32nd Street Southwest, and then it goes into residential. If you felt that we needed to have control with respect to that, we could do so. But for simplicity's sake, I think it just makes more sense if we do not bisect an established subdivision.
I don't think we need control, so to speak, but just wondering why. Clarity would be a good reason.
And it's pretty much all developed, if I recall right, with respect to the commercials or the commercial and industrial side.
If I could add one more comment with regard to the ETZ, we do get 2 miles. The first mile is exclusively city zoning and city control. The second mile is a shared mile with the county. Our zoning still takes precedent, but they are involved in the approval processes in that second mile. So there is a difference in the ETZ extension between the two.
And then once we hit a population threshold of 25,000, it extends out 4 miles, right? And so then when you extend out 4 miles, is it 2 and 2? Is that how that works?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other feedback?
Well, I do think we should proceed, though, with whatever you guys finalize the map at.
But not till after you've talked with the county.
I believe that meeting is August 2nd.
Okay. All right, anything else on ETZs? Then you want to talk about truck routes? No? It's on the agenda.
Mr. President, we've got a map behind you once again.
Oh. I'm tired of moving.
Mr. President, Commissioners, as you'll recall at the last City Commission meeting, we had a resolution before you establishing truck routes within the city and its immediate extraterritorial jurisdiction. The blue line is the truck route map. Includes 30th Avenue or the interim bypass, South State Avenue, 8th Street Southwest, I believe that's 9th Street East, 6th Street East, excuse me, the East Business Loop, and then Interstate 94. The purple line there is the full bypass, complete bypass, if and when that's constructed by the state. You'll see there's also a red line running through the city on Highway 22. That is the area that we currently have a truck prohibition on. Trucks other than local delivery trucks and some other emergency vehicles and that sort of thing are prohibited on that section of Highway 22 from exit 61 to Broadway Street. This is for your information tonight. Our ordinance does require that if the Commission wants to adopt truck routes, that we do notice this as a public hearing, publish it, and then provide a public hearing. We anticipate we could do that at the next meeting. So we appreciate any comments or feedback you would have on the resolution, or on the truck map, rather. And if you're in favor of it, we'll bring it back next time.
Any feedback? Any opposition to this?
I think it looks fine. I know that if we do this, we'll have to sign it. Had a little conversation with Chief Dossinger the other day that when we sign it, to sign the noise parts of it for engine brakes, Jake brakes, including the interstate, which you have to work with the DOT on.
One other comment on this. We had some discussion about this area up here. This is kind of an industrial area, as you know. Right now, we are not anticipating this section of Highway 22 north of exit 61 to be a truck route. So you can imagine those properties in this industrial section, if they wanted to go east on east on Highway Interstate 94, under this truck route proposal, we would ask that they would go up to the interim bypass and then connect with the interstate back at exit 59. You know, we could make this a truck route on Interstate 94, but at least our city staff recommendation is not to do that at this time. This exit and this stretch of road, at least our feeling was, gets enough truck traffic just with local delivery routes, and signing it and making it a truck route wasn't a direction that I guess city staff wanted to go at this time. You know, that does add several miles onto trucks going east on 94, so we could anticipate some pushback or some comment from local businesses regarding that matter.
Do we have to take any consideration with our Southern Water depot? The water depot on the south side? Do we have to include that short section over to our water depot and then take it out once if we decide to move that depot?
Commissioner Steiner, trucks accessing the depot I think we would consider those the equivalent of a local delivery truck. If they're going to a specific location in town, trucks are permitted on really any of our streets. What the truck route does is establish a set route for trucks who are merely passing through town to keep on these roads rather than some of our other local roads through town.
Thank you.
Any other comment or feedback? Well, maybe when we go through the public hearing portion, we'll learn more about that stretch of Highway 22 that you just highlighted. You know, I'm guessing the businesses that have trucks up in that area, you know, they have them going all four directions, and it's not like every truck they have would go east. I'd be surprised to learn that if that was the case. Anything else on trucks? Okay, I'm going to move on to Public Works. Mr. Zuroff, do you have some reports?
President Johnston, Commission, one thing I wanted to bring up tonight is we will be sending out a notice to all water account customers by the 27th of this month. The letter is to inform them of our maximum contaminant level violation that we had in one of our sampling. If I could back up a little bit, with the Safe Drinking Water Act, there were many rules. In 1990, there was a total coliform rule. And with the total coliform rule, each water system had to take monthly bacteriological water samples in their system. And the amount of water samples that they had to take is based on population. The City of Dickinson population is mandated that we take 20 samples a month. With those 20 samples, and part of this rule is you have to identify specific sampling points within your system. It has to be approved by your state health department. And so the specific sampling points were approved and I guess established quite a long time ago. We've been taking samples at these specific points for a number of years and have never had a bad, I guess, a bacteriological sample. We did get a bad bacteria sample in one of our sampling points. Immediately, we took another sample. After that, we took samples upstream and downstream of that sampling point. All those samples were good. And discussions with the state health department, because we had the two bad samples at one specific sampling point, and with a federal rule, we have to inform the public and send them out this letter. If it was been a more serious violation, we would have informed the public right away and probably had a boil order. One of the things that the discussion with the state health department is that sampling point, we found out after we sampled it had a specific or a pre-treatment on that sampling. Before that sampling point, most of the places we take samples are in commercial businesses or areas that we can access easy daily. So this commercial business, we had been taking a sample, and then when it got bad, we did more investigation and found that it had a pre-treatment or it wasn't an RO system, but a water softener system. And we feel, and the State Department of Health also feels, that that's where we acquired our bad sample in the bacteria. There have been multiple owners, and the bacteria can build up in those pre-treatment systems. So with the discussion of the State Health Department, we have moved our sampling point now. We're not sampling at that specific site. All samples after that have been negative of bacteria, and the State Health Department feels we have no other problems, but because of the rule, we still need to send out the letter. We will, and I said we'll send out the letter by the 27th of this month. I guess if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Any comments or questions? Okay. Any project updates that you want to give?
I think Craig did very well, and I appreciate Apex for coming tonight and doing that. One of the updates is we are having the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Public Works Building the 4th of August, and hopefully at the end of the week, my office will be out at the facility. One more update I wanted to give on a maintenance project. We've had many questions on, we call our chip seal project. I think the press and numerous people have had quite a few questions. Right now on that project, they're doing some seal coat in various parts of town. They put up signage that says no parking. They've been putting that up 48 hours before they crack seal the location. And hopefully tomorrow we'll have more information coming on that. But that's prelude to the chip seal itself. The seal coat and some other patching for the streets are done prior to the seal coat. But we'll try to get more information to the public as soon as we can.
Are those little yellow signs?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Zerf, what happens if there's a vehicle in the roadway during that time? Is it towed so they can do the chip seal?
Well, in the signs right now are for this crack sealing. What they're doing is crack sealing joints, and then throw, it looks like, or just toilet paper over the crack seal. In our initial pre-construction meeting with the contractor, we're going to try as much as we can at notifying the public, working with the public as much as we can. If we don't have any other options and we need to get, especially in a chip seal, I think they can come back to some of that seal coat. But on the chip seal, we will probably tow if we can't get a hold of the property owner, and because we would need to get that project done.
Any other comments or questions? Anything else, Mr. Zorro?
That's all I have.
Okay, we'll move to community development. There's one item there. Mr. Curtin.
Mr. President, Commissioners, this is a rezoning petition from ag to community commercial for the property described as the Badlands Storage Subdivision, which is located north of 29th Street West and west of Highway 22. There is one attached condition of approval that the property be annexed into the city. Planning Commission and city staff recommend approval. There is no change from the first reading, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. This is ordinance 1556. If anybody from the public would like to comment, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name. We'll hear your comments. Anyone from the public? There's no one from the public that wishes to comment. Any comments by city commissioners? Is there a motion regarding second reading and final passage?
I'll move for the second reading.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson.
Aye.
Mr. Altman.
Aye.
Mr. Steiner.
Aye.
Mr. Decker.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Curtin?
No, Mr. President.
Okay. Any reports by city commissioners? No. If there's anyone from the public that would like to address the commission, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. Anybody from the public? We have one member from the public.
I'll keep you here a little longer. Mr. President and members of the commission, John Cameron, Western Regional Director for Senator John Hoeven. Just haven't been to one of your meetings in a while, so I thought I'd need to come back and see how you guys were doing. Senator Hoeven sends his regards, and just know that I took notes about Burlington Northern, and when I see him next, we'll discuss that. And just want to make sure there are any other issues that you have, just please feel free to let me know about them.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and we may not need your help on Burlington Northern. We'll see, and let Mr. Kubas and Mr. Colling can deal with them, but
I've dealt with them in a previous life, and I know how difficult that can be.
okay. We hope we don't need your help, but thank you. Thank you for being here. Anybody else from the public? Not the chair to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.